So I'm on pvraterenglish.weebly.com, and we're going to get started in Unit 4. The world's deadliest disease is this unit, which is pretty applicable to what's going on right now in the time period. We're going to start off with some activities about the plague of 1665, the bubonic plague that wiped out a huge percentage of the population in Europe. So let's start off by just talking about the plague itself, the stages of the plague. In your notebooks is page 54 if you're using one of the digital copies of the worksheets. I have it there for you on Google Classroom. So there were basically 5 stages to the plague of 1665, the bubonic plague. And you're going to look at the fact that there was actually 3 types of the same plague, or 3, I guess, versions of the plague. Basically, if you caught the bubonic plague, and then what would happen once it got into your lungs, and then once it got into your blood, it kind of alters and changes into a different, but they're all the same plague. It starts from the same place. So basically, you have this virus that is carried by fleas. So these fleas bite rats, these rats that are infected with this bacteria. And then the fleas, they would bite the rats, and then the fleas would bite the humans. And, during this time period, the 1600s, the middle 1600s, sanitation was not a huge thing. Like, they just didn't have proper sanitation. I think we've talked about before how they kind of dumped their waste in the streets. They didn't have sewer. Like, they had one sewer system, but it just hygiene was, in general, was not a priority. So you've got all these people living really, really close together. London had experienced a big boom in population, and all these people living really close together in really poor sanitary conditions in places like Camden Town and some of the boroughs and poor neighborhoods of London, where you've got too close a population. This plague spread like wildfire because they had a lot of trash, they had a lot of sewage, so they had a lot of rats. A lot of rats means a lot of fleas. This virus is spreading, or this plague is spreading everywhere. So you basically, once you were infected, you went through 5 stages of the plague. The first stage, you would just have a huge swelling in your lymph nodes. And so, hopefully you have lymph nodes all over your body. You have them in your throat. You have them in your groin area where your leg meets your torso in the groin area. You have them in your armpits. And so these lymph nodes would swell. They would be huge. And so, if you've ever gotten strep throat, you know how your lymph nodes swell. So this would be the first stage of the plague. Your lymph nodes would swell in your groin and your armpits. And then there would be red and black ring-like blotches that would appear on the skin. The second stage is that you would have trouble sleeping because your body would ache so bad. So similar to like when you get the flu, you've got pain all over your body, you've got the shakes, and it's hard to get comfortable. Stage 3, you're going to run a super high fever. Okay, so what happens to you when you run a super high fever, and an unchecked super high fever, which would have been at the time, obviously, now we can take Tylenol or, medicine to bring the fever down, but unchecked high temperatures, they start to affect your brain and your nerves. So you're going to people are going to have difficulty understanding your speech. It's going to become unintelligible, unable to understand your nerves, your brain. You won't make a lot of sense. You're delirious. You may have hallucinations. Unchecked high temperatures, that's what's going to happen. So now you've got these huge swellings. You have blotches all over your skin. You got pain all over your body. It's hard to sleep. high temperature is going to affect your brain and nerves, and you're not going to be able, no one's going to be able to understand what you say. You're going to be delirious. Stage 4, blue and purple buboes appear. So in those places where you had those giant swellings of your lymph nodes, an outside sore would appear. They were called buboes, buboes. And so they were huge, they were painful, they bled easy, and the worst part is they smelled really bad. So if you've ever had like an infection or like pus in a wound or whatever, like that times like 900, pus, foul smelling, odor, gross, disgusting, sick smell, it would reek. Okay, and then the last stage usually with sneezing and vomiting would happen before you died. And so this was the run of the bubonic plague. Okay, so on average, if you caught the plague, it lasted from about 2 to 7 days. And the worst part was about 50% of the people who contracted the disease died as a result. Those aren't very good statistics. If you are 50-50, whether you live or die, that's pretty high impact. And you're going to see that it wiped all out a huge percentage of the population in London when you do your next activity. So the last thing that I want to point out about this particular assignment that you have here, down there at the bottom, the nursery rhyme, Ring Around the Rosie, actually originated here in the plague. And it was about people that were dying from the plague. And so you had Ring a Ring of Roses. Okay, that is indicative of those red blotches, those ring-like blotches that you would get on your skin in stage 1 of the plague. A pocket full of posies. So people would put flowers in their pockets on their close to their where they could whiff them with their nose, because these foul smell in the plague, the foul smell of people that had the plague, it would help to mask that odor, and also to mask the smell of death. When you've got people dying at extremely high rates, your system is overwhelmed, your coroner is overwhelmed, so dead bodies are laying around for quite a bit of time. Dead bodies start to stink after a little bit of time, so people would wear these flowers on their upper torso and in mask to keep the smell of death and the smell of that the plague away. And originally, we say ashes now, or you did when you were a kid, but originally it was a tissue, so like a sneeze. Okay, not like, oh, I need a tissue, but like I chew. Okay, so those are those sneezing fits. And then the last line there, we all fall down. Obviously, people dying from the plague. So just a little random knowledge for you there on the plague, that popular nursery rhyme. It did come from that time period. Okay, so that is all for this first assignment, the stages of the plague of 1665. Again, 54 in your notebooks if you've got them, your digital copy. Make sure that you complete that and get that turned in by Thursday, and I will see you guys soon.